Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim. We start with 5090 June 2019 paper 1-1, and in this video we shall discuss question 1 to question 20. Now let's start with question 1. The diagram shows a cell from a plant leaf and a cell from an animal skin. So this is the one with the animal skin and this is the one from the leaf. Now it says which part will stain blue-black with iodine solution. You know iodine solution only stains blue-black with starch. So starch is not present inside an animal cell, so it can't be C and D. So it's very obvious it has to be either A or B. Now A is the cell wall, which is made up of cellulose. Cellulose is a polysaccharide. But B is the chloroplast, and inside the chloroplast you have starch. So that is why the answer is B. Then next, question 2. The diagram shows a plant cell after being placed in a solution for an hour. What provides the explanation for the appearance of this cell? Now you can see as this is plasmolyzed, so this has got now the solution which is outside, the bathing solution has moved into the cell wall. This is well of course allowed. The cell wall is fully permeable. The cell membrane is now not adhered to it. Now if I have to color the cell membrane, this is the cell membrane. So the cell membrane has now separated from the cell wall, but it's still attached to the cell wall in certain places where there were plasmodesmata. So what provides the explanation for the appearance of this cell? Now the cell has gained water. Now both these are wrong. It has not gained water, it has lost water. Now we have two choices. The cell has lost water and is turgid. The cell has lost water and is no longer turgid. So that is why the answer is this one is D and all these other are incorrect. Then coming to question 3. The diagram shows some cells in the root of a plant that is absorbing water from the soil. How does the water potential of the cell marked 2 differ from water potential of the cell marked 1 and 3? So you have to understand is that when water molecule must have crossed this, from the water must have been in the soil, so it must have entered cell 1 through the root hair cell, and that will increase the water potential of cell 1. But then why would it move into cell 2? Because this cell 2 had a lower water potential. But then why would it move from cell 2 to cell 3? Why? Because 2 had a higher water potential than 3. So that is why we say, how does the water potential of 2? So 2 is lower than cell 1 and higher than cell 3. So water moves into 1, but then why does the water move from 1 to 2? Why? Because the water potential of 2 is less than 1. But then why does it move from 2 to 3? Because 2 is a higher water potential than cell 3. So you have to understand this, why C would be the correct answer. Question 4. Which statement about enzymes is not correct? All enzymes are made of proteins. Yes, all enzymes are made of proteins. So that is correct. Enzymes are biological catalysts. Yes, that is correct. So you have to realize that all these must be correct because one is incorrect. This is correct. This is correct. Most human enzymes work best at temperature between 35 and 40 degrees. Why is this incorrect? All human enzymes work best at temperatures between 35 and 47. So that is why this is correct. Most enzymes, but yes, it's correct. Most human enzymes, most or almost all of them. Now, why is the C incorrect? Enzymes are destroyed during the reaction they are involved in. No, 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 no. Enzymes remain intact even after the reaction. So they remain unchanged. So that is the definition of enzymes that we have learned. That enzymes are biological catalysts that remain unchanged during the reaction. So that is question 4. Now 5. What is the effect of a lack of nitrate ion on plant leaves? All leaves turn very dark green, leaves lose their yellow color, the leaves wilt, young leaves grow very slowly. So we have to understand is that this would be the answer. Young leaves grow very slowly because lack of nitrate means less proteins, less amino acids, less proteins, so less growth. because how will you add new cells? New cells need enzymes. Then question 6. The graph shows how two different conditions affect the rate of photosynthesis. So this is the rate of photosynthesis, and this is increase, and this is increase something. Now what that increase is, that's what is going to be questioned. And on the y-axis we have rate of photosynthesis. Which conditions are being altered in graphs 1 and graph 2? In graph 1 something increases, the rate increases and then plateaus off. So in graph 1 it had to be carbon dioxide concentration. Now graph 2, the graph increases, and then after a certain, then it decreases. So this has to be the temperature graph, because as you know, every enzyme has an optimum temperature, and after that temperature, when that temperature is reached, then the rate is going to fall. So this had to be the temperature graph, it couldn't be anything else. Question 7. A plant has leaves with both green and white areas, variegated leaves. One of its leaves is partly covered with aluminium foil which blocks light. So you see, this is the area which they have covered. This is the area that they have covered. So this part will not get any light. So no light means no photosynthesis, no starch. So the plant is then placed under a lamp for 24 hours. After this time, discs are cut from the areas of the leaf shown. We have 4 discs, W, X, Y, and Z, and they are tested with iodine. Now, which of the leaf discs will give a blue-black color when tested with iodine? So, which parts will contain starch? Now, you know, this part has white, so there's no chloroplast here. This part is white, no chloroplast here, but it didn't get even any light. Now, this part Z did not get any light, so no light in Z. This will also not have starch. So, there's only Y which will have starch. So you please understand that X, Y, because X is the white area and where X does not have any chlorophyll in it. There's no pigment which absorbs light. W was a white area but was covered with the piece of aluminium foil. So even if it wasn't covered, it still would not contain any starch. Z area was green. Z area was green. But then it was covered by this piece of paper that we have placed here. So then this would be covered, so no light would be reaching this. So no photosynthesis. So it's only Y which was exposed to light and will photosynthesize and will produce starch. So it will be, when tested with iodine, it will give you a blue-black color. Question 8. So question 8, you have to understand the diagram shows a section of the wall of the small intestine, into which structure are most of the lipid components of the diet absorbed for transport to the rest of the body. You know that inside the villi, you have the lacteals, which are the blind tubes, and then these end up in the lymphatic vessels. So if there are any fats, these are going to enter the lacteals, and I always tell you to remember it, lipids are also called fats, and these are called lacteals, and these are called lymph vessel, all L. So that is why the answer to this was A, because you can see that I'm going to just shade this. This is the area which was the lacteals. And then if you can see this part, this is where this is all the blood vessels. These are all the blood vessels. And in the capillaries would we enter, this would be the capillary network where in the capillaries would enter the glucose and the amino acids. So the glucose, which is from the bread that you ate, from the meat or the chicken that you ate, amino acids and water and vitamins and calcium. So if you had calcium, if you had milk, then calcium would be entering into the capillary network, which I've drawn in red. So just a quick revision of this chapter. 9. The diagram shows the arrangement of human teeth in the lower jaw. Which tooth is an incisor? You know that the front four teeth are the incisors. So if you look at these, this is incisor, this is incisor, this is incisor, this is incisor. And then you have, these are the canines on the sides, canine. If you remember, there was a film called Canine, which was about dogs. And then, of course, we have the premolars, and then you have the molars. So the premolars and the molars will be, so A would be the molars, and B would be the premolars, C would be the canine, and D would be the incisors. So which tooth is an incisor? Then question 10. Which statement describes the function of the stomach? Which sentence describes the function of the stomach? It absorbs indigestible food material. No, nothing can absorb that. It is the place where protease and bile works. No, bile works in the small intestine, in the duodenum, in the small intestine. So this is wrong, this is wrong. It is the first place in the alimentary canal where starch digestion happens. No, starch digestion in fact stops because your salivary amylase doesn't work in the acid of the stomach. And so the last is correct. It secretes protease and strong acid. Then question 11. Which statement best describes the movement of water through the stem of a plant? Water moves up the stem as it evaporates from the leaf. This is what you have to understand. The evaporation from the leaf causes a suction force, and that pulls the water up. Just like if you have a glass of water and you have a straw in it. So what is to happen is that some suction force has to be applied, which is going to pull up this water inside this straw, and it will go into your mouth. So the suction force is the evaporation from the leaves. Then why was B wrong? Water moves up the stem as it is pushed by water entering the roots. No, the roots can't push it. Then why is C wrong? Water moves up the stem because it is used in photosynthesis. No, in photosynthesis it's going to be used from the cells which already contain it. Yes, it will go from the xylem. Water moves up the stem by osmosis. No, water moves up the stem by in the xylem. Xylem is there's no membrane in the xylem. So why would it move up by osmosis? Osmosis is the movement from a higher water potential to a lower water potential across a partially permeable membrane. In the xylem, there is no partially permeable membrane. Question 12. A plant was placed in water containing black dye. After 24 hours, the plant was removed and the sections were taken from the root and the stem. Which diagram shows the result? So the black dye in the root would be in the center. So you can see in the root, this is the center here. So this would be black. And in the stem, it would be the xylem because the xylem is on the inside. So if you knew this, only then you would get this correct. Because the xylem in a stem, in the vascular bundles, the xylem is on the inside. And in the root, the xylem is in the center where there's a sort of a cross in it which formed. So this is what you had to understand, and these are of course all incorrect. Question 13. In a muscle which two substances show net, which two substances show net movement from the plasma into the tissue fluid? Which two substances show net movement from the plasma into the tissue fluid? Now that had to be glucose and oxygen. Carbon dioxide and glucose, in fact, carbon dioxide moves from the cells into the blood. Carbon dioxide both was wrong because carbon dioxide never moves from the plasma into the tissue fluid. It moves from the cells into the tissue fluid and then into the plasma. Lactic acid will be made inside the cells and will move into the blood to be carried to the liver, where it is of course again converted to glucose and respired to release energy. Number 14, a patient inhales a drug. Inhales means smokes it, takes it into his lungs. Which chamber of the patient's heart will be the first to receive blood containing the drug? So if it is inhaled, then you know it is the lungs where it's taken in. Now the lungs, from the lungs, the blood comes back through the pulmonary vein, and the pulmonary vein enters, this is the left atrium. So they're just asking you that which chamber would be the first to receive blood containing the drug. So in the lungs, it comes to the left atrium, and this is the chamber which will receive this. Question 15. Which table shows vessels carrying blood to and from the heart, liver, and lungs? So we have heart, liver, and lungs, and we have blood to the organ and blood away from the organ. So you know the heart, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, hepatic portal vein, liver, hepatic vein, pulmonary vein, lungs, pulmonary artery. Then pulmonary artery, heart, pulmonary vein, hepatic vein, liver, hepatic portal vein, and then we have the pulmonary vein, lungs, and the pulmonary artery. Now, why was C correct? Now we need to understand this. Why is C correct? You see the heart and the liver. So the liver blood to hepatic portal vein from the intestine goes to the liver, and that's called the hepatic portal vein. And then the vessel that leaves it is called the hepatic vein. So hepatic portal vein carrying blood to the liver, and hepatic vein carrying it away from the organ. Then the lungs, then you know pulmonary artery brings deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and the lungs oxygenated blood goes in the pulmonary vein. So this had to be correct. Then the blood to the organ. So pulmonary vein goes to the heart, and the pulmonary artery carries blood away from the heart. So a little confusing, a little difficult, but I'm sure if you understand it, you'll be able to do it. Which statement about anaerobic respiration in humans is correct? It releases less energy than aerobic respiration. Is correct. You see, this was wrong. It can only happen in the cells of the lungs. No, anaerobic respiration only occurs in the muscles. It only happens when oxygen supply exceeds oxygen demand. Again, wrong. It releases carbon dioxide. No, in humans, it is just glucose, and it is converted to lactic acid. So basically, no carbon dioxide produced, plus a little energy is released. A little energy is released. So this is what we had to understand about anaerobic respiration. Question 17, the diagram shows the human gas exchange system. Which label shows the position of the larynx? So you have to say it was A, B is the trachea, C is the alveoli, and D is the right bronchus. Then coming to question number 18, the graph shows how the pressure and volume inside the lungs changes during one complete breath. Let's understand it. At which point are the muscles of the diaphragm starting to contract? So one is the volume and the other is the pressure. And you know that when the diaphragm muscle contracts, what does it do? It sort of goes down, less convex. And that's when a person starts to inhale. What we have to understand is that when the diaphragm muscle contracts, it's going to increase the volume. Now, you know this graph is of the volume. So as the volume is going to just start to increase, that is when the diaphragm muscle starts to contract. So that is why this point here is the A part, where the volume has just started to increase, and the volume is increasing up to here, this point, and then it starts to decrease. But then you see how the pressure changes. So when the volume increases, the pressure has to decrease. Volume increases, pressure has to decrease. And then air moves in from high pressure to low pressure from the outside. Question 19. The diagram shows the kidneys and their associated structures. So P is the kidney, Q is the ureter, R is so this is the ureter, there are two ureters. And this is R is the urinary bladder. And then S is the urethra. Which row identifies P, Q, or R and S? So P has to be the kidney, so you have to narrow down to C and D. And then Q was the ureter, so it was only this one which was correct, and bladder and urethra. You confuse this, confuse this urethra and ureter. But as I often tell you to remember it like this. So there are two E's in it and there are two ureters. So there are two ureters, and while in this we have only one E and there is only one urethra. So just a way to remember it. You see, it's all rote learning, nothing very difficult. Then question 20. By which mechanism would the body be able to lose most heat on a hot dry day if the surrounding air temperature is higher than the body temperature? You see, then you're going to gain that heat, but the body temp the surrounding air temperatures, like these days it's very hot. It's the month of June. It's very, very hot. So you can't lose any other way, because if the environment temperature is higher than the body temperature, it means that your body temperature is at 37 and the environment temperature is at 39 degrees Celsius. So you cannot lose heat in many ways. So sweat gland become more active because more sweat is produced and the sweat evaporates and cools your body down. So by which mechanism is the body able to lose most heat on a hot, dry day if the surrounding air temperature is higher than the body temperature? So the other three are not going to work. This was, of course, blood vessels, the skin become narrow, no. Hair erector muscle relax, so hair lays flat, and shivering in the body muscle ceases. Then coming to question 21, last question. What are the short-term effects of adrenaline in the body? Yeah, decreased blood. So short-term effects. Short-term effects means immediately when adrenaline is released, what is that going to result in? It's going to cause an increase in the blood sugar. Why? Because the glycogen is converted to glucose by the effect of adrenaline, and there's going to be an increased heart rate. So basically, it's going to be these two things. Blood sugar will decrease if you do some exercise after that, in which you've had some anxiety and fear factor. So this decreased heart rate would happen later on. Now it says short-term effects. Short-term effects would be there'll be, because the adrenaline causes the liver to convert glycogen to glucose. So increased blood glucose level or blood sugar concentration and heart rate increases. That's the immediate response. So it had to be 3 and 4, and that was the answer. That finished this video at the moment, and then we will continue with the rest of the questions in the second video. We handle question 20 to question 1 to 21 in this video, and then we'll continue in the next one. Thank you very much.